Hi, and a very warm welcome to Stories with Sachi, a cozy pause filled with short stories, poems, and musings inspired by love, life, travel, and the incredible people I've met along the way. Today, I'm joined by someone truly inspiring, and I cannot wait for you to hear his reflections. We have with us Maninder Kohli, an adventurer, trekker, golfer, and former banker. He's the man behind Juniper Outdoor, a premium trekking company, serves as the managing trustee of the Himalayan Environment Trust, and is the director of the annual IMF Mountain Film Festival in Delhi. He has recently launched his book, Mountains Do Move, which is full of remarkable tales from the mountains and contains breathtaking imagery. Maninder and I have known each other since many years now, and our shared love for the mountains has always been a common thread between us. Welcome to Stories with Sachi.
Thank you so much, Sachi. Very, really happy to be connected and be on this particular initiative. Yeah.
Lovely. So let's begin. While growing up, you had some of the mountaineering greats like Sir Edmund Hillary and Reinhold Messner in the home. What was that like? Did you know who they were at that time? And how did they inspire you?
I think I was quite young when Tenzing Norgay would visit us. So Tenzing had climbed Everest in 1953 and he was a popular figure. This was in the early 70s. My father had just joined Air India and he was responsible for tourism. So his job at that time was to encourage trekking in the Himalayan region. So he would travel um, abroad to Europe, USA, mostly these countries, and give talks. And many times he would be accompanied by Tenzing. So Tenzing in that era would be staying at Darjeeling. He would come down to Bombay, stay with us for a few days, and then they would move on. At that time, I didn't really have much of a idea because I was fairly young. In later years, we moved to Sydney in Australia, and that time we started getting connected with Sir Edmund Hillary. So Hillary used to live in New Zealand, and he would stop by in Sydney. Sometimes coming from Nepal, sometimes he would come in from New Zealand to Sydney to give a talk. So he stayed with us. I recollect about 12 times, and that time I was a little older, and it was always nice to have somebody like somebody of his eminence always there. And so I think it's definitely inspiring to have people like this around you. The stories which they tell, the chatter which happens around it is a lot of fun. A lot of people who have read my book now and they're finding mention of all these greats have called me saying, we're very jealous that you have met. But for us, it was just a normal, kind of aspect because my father was connected to the mountains for so many years. In later years, when my father established the Himalayan Environment Trust, HET, then the situation took another turn because at that time, the folks connected with the HET were the most eminent climbers of that era. I'm talking now closer to 86, 87 period where
Yeah.
the original trustees were Edmund Hillary, Reynold Messner, Chris Bonington, Janko Tabai, Morris Herzog, and father himself. That was again a very, very eminent group of mountaineers, each one having done a lot in the world of mountaineering at that point in time. This has been, I would say, a nice aspect. And when I was writing my book, I made sure that I like to bring a lot of these stories out because some of them were mainly restricted to our own house and our internal network, that way.
Lovely. I can imagine you being the source of envy for lots and lots of people out there, including myself, for having had access to some of these legends, really. So let's shift gear a little bit. Let's talk about your career. So you were a corporate banker for many, many years, and then you shifted track completely and started Juniper Outdoor. So what led to that shift? Were
So,
your childhood experiences a part of it?
yeah. So, my father did a lot of climbing. He went to Everest three times, Annapurna three, Nanda Kot, Nanda Devi. He did a lot of epic expeditions, but his thought to me was that I like to offer you an opportunity to do some courses, do some treks. But when it comes time to a career, please look at a normal career, nothing to do with adventure. That's what he felt was prudent, and I took that kind of hint. I did my MBA from the US at a school called Thunderbird, and it was one of the leading master's programs at that point in time. Joined Citibank. Citibank at that time was setting up its consumer bank in India. So I embarked on a career, and it was going well, and I was really enjoying myself. But a point came 15 years into Citibank's life at City that I felt that our family, I had two children by that time, were getting disconnected from the mountains. We had virtually, even myself, I had not seen done any mountain activity for, 15 odd years. And I felt inclined to introduce my children to the outdoors, and I took them on a short family trek, and that kind of sparked a major change. I just loved it so much after 15 corporate years. I just loved the outdoors, and I felt this is something really something which I should pursue. And then I took a commitment internally in my mind that I would at least do two treks a year for the next 15, 20 years. And let me see where that takes us. And, I'll just like to pursue the outdoors as a hobby. This was a pledge I took sometime in 2005. And, uh, and then I ended up working in Citibank till 2010, which was 20 years. But in 2020, I shifted gears, and uh, after leaving Citibank, I was not inclined to carry on with my corporate career. I said, let me just set up an adventure travel company, use that as a kind of develop a second innings around that. So taking that into view, Juniper started, and it's been now 16 years since I've been doing Juniper and doing a lot of treks in the mountains, and kind of I would say, um, a second innings has emerged for me, and so that's how it's gone.
So you must have taken some thousands of people on treks so far at Juniper. And keeping the theme of your book, Mountains to Move, what has been the most profound moment so far?
So, there are two aspects to it. Is that one is that some of the trips I have done personally have been with small groups into unexplored areas. I have had the opportunity to go to some very, very pretty areas, which were the first time an adventure group, trekking group has reached there. I think we only preceded by shepherds who may have just gone with their stock. So this whole process of going to some of these outback areas, sometimes 2 weeks long expeditions, has been really very, very satisfying. When I look back, just the thought of doing something like this, as you look back, was fairly aggressive now, but we were able to pull it off. And I just have loved this experience. And regarding introducing people to the outdoors, mostly people have not done things which I have been doing. And, as time has gone on, people's calendars are hurried. They just don't have time. So typically I've had to change the kind of trips which I used to do to the trips which I'm offering now from Juniper's perspective. But the fact that I've been able to encourage so many thousand people to go to the outdoors, enjoy them, and have kind of worked on their fitness, mental aspects have come through. We have had an opportunity to virtually reset ourselves, doing this, including myself. And I think that that aspect has been really encouraging. The other aspect, which is also interesting, is that when you send people to the outdoors, you're getting them supported by locals. Over time, I've got this group of people who have been supporting Juniper in various places across the Himalaya. There are about 14 such teams which help out, and they typically are managed by local people who live there, so they get employment, they get jobs. Really feel elated that somebody is coming to our area, and they treat them like a honored guest, look after them, and show them to the outdoors. So that's uh, overall, when I look at the whole ecosystem which has got created, I feel a sense of satisfaction that this thing, my second innings has gone in a very different direction, but it's given me a lot of let's say a lot of pleasure at the end of it.
So very fulfilling, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
So in your book, Jamling Tenzing Norgay has left a note, or rather written a note, where he talks about the spirit of adventure. Can you detail that out a bit more? What does it mean in a normal person's life?
I think that's a really important question, and something which I like to try and explain. Everybody can quickly grasp, but I like to talk about it, and I like to use the Doon School example um, to explain it, because I think that is how it will get captured or understood the best. So let's just analyze a situation which happened at Doon School. So Doon School was established in 1935. It was like a boarding school based in Dehradun, set up with the British faculty. So in Doon School, you had these housemasters and a headmaster. Housemasters was like each of the children were given a house. So there would be a senior who would be managing a group of children, and that's how Doon School kind of started. The people who joined Doon School in the housemaster and headmaster position were typically all Britishers. And when you look at the old records, you'll find that they were all members of the British Alpine Club. So when you look at the fact that they were Alpine Club members, that shows that they were typically mountaineers based in the UK who took these positions. And I'm it's not very difficult to understand why an alpinist would take such a position, because at the back of the mind those days, travel was not very simple. I'm talking about 1935. So they had the opportunity of coming to the Himalaya. So you imagine like us, like you the other day mentioned that you are planning a trip to Europe, and you're looking forward to doing a walk around Mont Blanc. Similarly, just imagine an individual who's been doing Mont Blanc, but now he's getting an opportunity to come to the Himalaya. It's a big thing. So these
Yes.
people accepted the position. One of them was Jack Gibson, who was a geography teacher at Doon School. And as time evolved after 1935, started taking the children, the pupils, out on treks. And one thing came out of these experiences, because was that as you subjected children to these adventures, they were putting up tents, they were crossing rivers, they were climbing, they were reaching the high point of a peak. Essentially, they were going through multiple challenges, one challenge after the other. So what would happen is that they would be bad weather. That's how mountain life is. They're that's what is adventure. Adventure means everything which is unscripted. Something or the other is going to happen. So in that atmosphere, what was happening was that these children were going through these set of challenges and overcoming each of the challenges. So as you're overcoming each of these challenges, the mind is getting rewired. For a young individual, what was happening is that he's saying that life will present challenges, but then there is a way to overcome the challenges. And when you overcome, you're filled with this positivity. This positivity is what I refer to as the spirit of adventure. So it's like it's like a term which also talks. I mean, brings you to the area of outdoor education. So outdoor education is where you use the outdoors not only just to learn about botany or something related to the outdoors geography, but also to aspects like the spirit of adventure. So Doon School is where this started, and this was so successful. This aspect of this benefit to the pupils, that Doon School instituted a program where during breaks in the year, the children would do these adventures. It became mandatory, and it still is. If you look back all these years, these adventure trips remain a part of the curriculum of Doon School. And so for me, this is something which is really very important as I went through my book to get this out. And so this is the spirit of adventure.
I think you're right. A lot of these boarding schools, whether it was Doon, Sherwood, Sanar, all of them used to encourage the kids to go out there and experience something rugged, something wild. Because my father also went to Sherwood and he would tell us about his stories of climbing mountains with barely any equipment that we get now or have access to. So, that's true alpinism, the way, the term where it comes from, I think.
That's
So, just going to talk a little bit about your father, Captain Kohli. He was the first Indian to lead an expedition to the top of Mount Everest in May 1965. But he, along with a few other team members, had attempted Everest prior to that as well. So in 1962, they got stuck somewhere very close to the top and they had to turn back and they almost, didn't make it. However, Captain Kohli had this life philosophy, which was one step more. So he took one more step, and that's how all of them miraculously survived. So, if you can just tell me about how that philosophy perhaps guided you in your own journey through life.
so, for father, what happened was that in 1953, when Tenzing and Hillary climbed Everest, they met with Jawaharlal Nehru, who was our prime minister. India had just got independence, and they met in New Delhi after the climbers came here. And Jawaharlal Nehru took Tenzing aside and said, it's very important that we also have a mountaineering school and we put an Indian team on the summit of Everest. I mean, that was his viewpoint was that if India as a young nation achieves the climb of Everest, it will be something which will energize the whole youth of the country. That's what he believed. So in 1955, my father was one of the first to graduate from this particular school, which is called the Himalayan Mountain Institute at Darjeeling, under the leadership of Tenzing Norgay. And in 1960, India launched its first expedition to Everest, and they missed reaching the summit narrowly. In 1962, my father was a deputy leader now. He had gained some experience over these years, and he was in the summit group, which was the sixth camp on the summit of Everest at nearly 27,500 feet. They went for the summit, and again they missed the summit by about only 100 meters. There was bad weather and it was not prudent to continue towards the top. They turned around and started descending. The typical thumb rule in the Everest expeditions at the end was that at 2 o'clock you should take a decision on what you want to do. Because if you delay it further, you will get stranded on the mountain. But if you take a call at 2 o'clock, and you will be able to make it back to your camp, which is necessary to survive in that altitude. But in 1962, somehow the bad weather and various things happened and they got stranded. And that was an epic survival which happened, and they reached their tent at around 11 in the night, narrowly escaping the elements, I would say. So that was in 1962. In 65, my father was Captain Kohli became the leader of our third Everest expedition, and based on the experience he had, he pushed that sixth camp further up, closer to the summit, nearly close to now 28,000 feet. He felt that that will give a better opportunity for the team to make the summit, and he felt that was a really important decision. And so 9 people summited in 1965. That was, I would say, a very, very big thing. It kind of created massive positive energy. It gave a springboard to mountaineering as a sport. And a film was made, Nine Atop Everest, which was initially screened at Vigyan Bhavan in New Delhi. Mrs. Gandhi attended that. By that time, the Prime Minister Nehru had passed away, and Mrs. Gandhi was the Prime Minister. She attended that screening, and then the film was released in movie halls across India. Uh, in 1966, the team was honored by um, letting them walk during the Republic Day parade, which is a great honor indeed. And so, father, with that support, he kind of continued his efforts in mountaineering and other areas over the years. He became president of the Indian Mountaineering Foundation and played a big role in encouraging adventure in India. He wrote 23 books. Now, one of the
Wow.
books, which autobiography which he wrote, was he was thinking of the title, and he said he thought long and hard about the title of the book, and his mind kept going back to the 1962 incident, which I referred briefly when they were coming back at 2 o'clock. They came back down till 6:30 there was light, after which when it became pitch dark they just sat down, and the thought was to just be there, and just let death come. That was the mindset. But after about an hour of sitting like this, they said, why don't we just slide on our bums, just down, just slide 1 foot at a time. And they kept doing that, and at 11 o'clock his hand hit a tent cord. He couldn't see it, but it hit a tent cord, and that is how they survived. So he ended up naming his autobiography One More Step. And he felt that in life, the difference between life and death sometimes is that one more step. And that's also the difference between success and failure sometimes, that one more step, and that is the philosophy of the outdoors, of, epic mountaineering, that you mentally should never give up. You should keep going stronger and stronger. And that philosophy of one more step, kind of what he articulated a lot. And when I was writing my own book and I was reflecting, even though I was not doing things like Everest, I was doing treks, but there was an interesting learning outcome from each particular endeavor. And that's the beauty of the mountains, that when you go out and do things, it's referred sometimes as experiential learning, which you experience and learn. And it's something which is, I feel, reflective in nature. It's for your own personal aspect. So in my book, after each chapter, I have written a footnote where I talk about the experiential part, that what was my takeaway, what was my self-reflection, learning outcome from that particular endeavor. Just like for father, it was one more step on that 19.
Lovely. So, in your book, you have detailed out lots of incredible treks, beautiful photographs, by the way. There are many treks I have not been on yet, and now I'm very inspired to go on those. But since both of us have been on the Goichila trek, which is in Sikkim, and you have a chapter on that, you speak of choosing which viewpoint to go to. So there's a viewpoint one and there's a viewpoint two. Two brings you closer to the entire massif of Kanchenjunga, which is the third highest mountain in the world, or viewpoint one, which meant that you start off slightly later than later would be, say, 4 a.m. rather than 2 a.m. But the group of people that managed to get closer to the mountain obviously came back completely blown away, transformed by that experience. And that's what mountains do to you. They just transform you into a better, more resilient person. You were leading that particular group, and the people who could not get closer were not very happy about that. So, what leadership lesson did that experience teach you? Because a lot of them came back with regret, and I'm sure that you must have thought about it for a long time later as well. So,
Yeah.
is there any lesson that we can apply in our daily lives from something like this?
So I asked the team the night before that there's a certain, as we leave the next morning, what do you want to do? So everybody did a self assessment, that some said I'll leave at 2 o'clock, I will leave at 4 o'clock, I'll leave at 6 o'clock, for based on the location where they were heading. I chose to get up around 3 and we left on the 4 o'clock. So I was in the middle group. There was one group of 6 people which were leaving at 2. They wanted to get as close to Kanchenjunga as possible. And there was third group which left at 6. So we all came back, and we were all huddled together. And what I noticed was that the people who left at 2 and 4 were really happy because they had made it to a certain location, got a good view of the peak. It was a is something satisfying. But most of the folks, there were some folks who were slightly feeling off, that the trek hasn't gone well, and they're kind of disappointed. And as I probed further, I found that all of them who were not happy were the people who had left at 6, a part of the group who left at 6. They felt that they had not challenged themselves adequately, and they should have put themselves in the other groups. And on the way back, we chatted about it. Some of them asked me that, why didn't you push me? You should have, me, I can do it. You should have pushed me. Why were you holding back? And, I could feel their sense of disappointment. And I thought about it, and I kind of, as to what's happened here, that, at one point I said I made a mistake. Sometimes I would think that, it's each individual's prerogative to take a decision on what they want to do in life. And as I was reflecting, my thoughts went to the autobiography of Edmund Hillary, which is titled Nothing Venture, Nothing Win. So Edmund Hillary says that in life, if you want to achieve something, you are the one who has to take onus, stand up and take that effort, take that push. And while I do accept that I could have nudged a few people, but the thought I was left with is that it's in life, each individual has to take responsibility for their actions. And, if that involves some pain, which is short lived, I would say, then you have to do that. And so it was an interesting observation which came up. So that's how I concluded my chapter on Gochala.
All right. Nice lesson. Now, trekking has really, I would say, transformed over the last few years, last decade perhaps. Lots of these little companies sprouting up here and there, and lots of these treks taking place. We can see a lot of garbage around some of the more popular trails. We can also see not the proper equipment being used. And as we know, the weather can turn at any point when you're in the high mountains. So, how do you think we can have a more responsible approach towards trekking in India specifically? Perhaps just as people who are a part of a group, as trekkers ourselves.
So, typically the area you have discussed is about risk management. Risk management is an area which talks about accidents, incident, near misses, which happen in mountain locations. And if you're in a sport like the adventure in the outdoors with the vagaries of the weather, the challenge of the terrain, there are going to be incidents. And but can these incidents be contained into a very small number? What can we do to grow the sport in an organized way? So there are several associations which are there in the ecosystem. In the Indian Mountaineering Foundation is there, the Adventure Tour Operators Association, ATOI, is there. There, WWF India plays a role. The Hannafel Center, which is part of Woodstock School. There is NOLS, which is the National Outdoor Leadership School. So there are several organizations which are connected to the outdoors. The state governments in each location has a kind of a disaster management task force which is looks after these areas. So there is a while adventure is big in India and has been growing very well, the ecosystem around it is also developing. So, but I would feel that there is a lot to do because, you're talking about remote areas, you're talking about uh, uh, kind of places which are not very easy to do so many things. Even rescue somebody from deep in the Himalaya is a task in itself. So there are some work in progress to improve all this aspect. And if you look at the situation overseas, like in the US or Europe, it's much more organized, I would say. So there are efforts going on in India to bridge the gap, which is there to a certain extent. And so hopefully in the coming years, with the support of the people who are part of the ecosystem, I'm sure that will get managed.
All right. And for people who are looking to embark on this great adventure of a trek, is there something they should keep in mind? Like what kind of companies do they go for? Have they trained? Are they fit enough to be out there on a trail? Any tips like that? Would you like to give some?
So I do really, I just feel that the urban life which most people are living is pushing us in a certain direction. It's not natural, the traffic, the whole pollution aspect around it. So I think I personally feel, and that's how I felt, when I was taking breaks from Citibank and getting myself started, that whenever I would do, let's say, a Singapore or a trip overseas, Thailand, in those areas were common at that point in time, I would never feel that I had a proper detox. But when I would go into the mountain areas, I would come back refreshed and really energized. So I feel that it's a very, very good idea. I would encourage everybody uh, to slot in one adventure every year for the rest of their lives. Keep going to different areas. You need at least 3 to 4 lifetimes to see the full Himalayan region. It's so vast. There are lots of places to go, and over time, as roads have penetrated deeper into the mountains, small homestays, small hotels have sprung up, which can be like a kind of a base camp to kind of embark on some great adventures. So I would say that it's really important for everybody to do it. And as you kind of get deeper into the sport and you buy gear and build your fitness, and that will help you then improve the challenge level, so you would start with something smaller, like, I look at yourself also, because then I've been following your efforts, how you started initially with a couple of small treks here and there, and then finally pushed yourself and got to Everest Base Camp. So that is something which will not happen, I would say, automatically. It's something you have to earn and work towards. And once you have done that, then it helps you to look ahead, and the fact that you have done Gochala, you asked me that question, and the fact that you're now looking at trip to Europe, that's how you're kind of moving on. So that's how the life of a trekker evolves, or I would say call it an outdoor enthusiast, that, you keep building on from each and every excursion and do something different, something one level higher. So that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I think once you get into this world of trekking or just being outdoors, it just keeps you going or it motivates you to stay fit, go for those walks, go for a jog, maybe go run a marathon, whatever it is. That's actually some of the things that I've been applying in my own life.
So, after all of these expeditions in the mountains, what do mountains mean to you?
So, I would say that initially when I was drawn to the mountains, it was the landscape which was captivating for me, and I always enjoyed photography, would head there with the camera. But as I started logging in these trips, there was a shift. I felt that there were a lot of people interaction would happen. Sometimes it's the people who were with me, then the other times there were the guides who were with me, who I was supporting us in the mountains. Sometimes it was a village folk we would interact. So that was a second dimension which kind of took place. And as time got on, the third aspect, which is about the self reflection part, like I talked about my father's book, One More Step, where you self reflect, that aspect kicked in. So, which I refer to as the third dimension. So, I would say that I can't pinpoint anything specifically. I would just say that the overall experience which comes through has been something really special for me, and I'm really grateful for the fact that I've got this opportunity to spend so much time in very unique, lovely landscape across the Himalayan region, experience something which very few people have seen, and I'm highly grateful for that opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a very insightful and engaging conversation. I hope all the viewers also enjoy it and take away some of the life lessons that you've shared with us. We would love to pick up a copy of your book. So, mountainsdomove.in. That's where it's available. Everyone, please look out for the link.
This is the book, Mountains Do Move, and so it's a coffee table book. It contains 18 chapters and has some of my most epic trips in the mountains. It's a photo book where there is some images with extended captions, so it makes it easier to go through, and you connect the picture with the story, so that's how it moves along. And I do hope that whoever are mountain enthusiasts and like reading, they'll pick up a copy and really enjoy and benefit from it.
So the link is going to be in the description. Please go check it out and do pick up a copy. I've been through just a part of the book and I've thoroughly enjoyed reading it. There are some really meaningful lessons which I feel even people who are not mountaineers or trekkers or adventurers can really take away and adapt in their daily lives. So thank you so much, Maninder, once again, and hope to see you soon on a trail someday.
Thank you.